objectives will first be read by Lindsay Farnham.
Okay, so Eileen's speech is out of the manual, and it's called The Birth and Development of a Sex Therapist. Her objectives are for the speech to be entertaining and humorous. She'd like to use hand gestures and vocal variety. And she'd also like some feedback on the speech content, and not just from me, but from people in the room as well. So when I give my evaluation, I'm going to open it up. So please take your notes as well. Thanks.
Before I introduce Eileen, I'll just give her a quote. I had to forgive a friend for bailing out on a New York City Museum trip at the last minute, as my daughter has flown in from Cincinnati to be with my disabled husband so I could do New York with a friend. And one more thing, maybe somebody would get the little index cards in the back and pass them out so we can help Aline with the clock. So that's the long introduction. Aline, here you go.
Thank you. That's a great idea because maybe some of you will have feedback and you won't want to say it. So, I'm a sex therapist, and I'll bet you anything, for some of you, I am the first or maybe the only sex therapist you've ever met in your life. And I want to talk to you about how it is that I became a sex therapist. It has a whole lot to do with my family. That's the underpinnings of it. I grew up in this wonderful, warm, open family, and there are certain qualities I think you need to have to be a good sex therapist. I think it helps to be warm, it helps to be interested in people, it helps to feel good about sex, not be scared of it, and be able to talk about sex and use all the right words. It helps a lot if you've been raised beautifully so that you don't get triggered when other people tell you their really frightening stories. You could have a bad childhood and still be a sex therapist, but I find it a lot easier if you actually had a good childhood and then you can listen to other people. So, I'm going to tell you about my mom because she is a big piece of this story. So, my mother was 4'10", she probably weighed 200 pounds. She came over from Russia, came to the United States, became an English teacher, and then became a social worker. My mom was known for being really funny. When my mother died, some of the neighbors from my street came over and they told me the following story. They said they met my mother at the hospital where she worked because they were there coming to see a doctor, and they said, "Manya, how are you?" So remember what my mother looked like, right? So they say, "Manya, how are you?" And my mother went like, "Still modeling." When I was in high school, my parents had a lot of people at my house. And when I was at my high school 50th reunion, people came up and told me a lot of stories about my mother. People that I didn't even remembered stories about my mother and how warm and wonderful she was. But the funniest story to me is a story that was told to me by two of my little childhood friends. There were a group of 4 of us, and my mother was a baker, which is probably why she weighed 200 pounds. And we used to go play jacks in my room for hours and hours, and my mother gave us some dough, and then we asked for food coloring, and we put green food coloring in the dough, and then we rolled it into strips. We went into my room, and we stuck 2 strips up each nostril. So there were the 4 of us. We went in to see my mother. Mrs. Albrecht, we have boogers. And they said my mother laughed hysterically. And then they went back in the room, and we played jacks some more, and an hour and a half later, they said, "We came back, we stuck them back in our nose, and they went back to the kitchen to see your mother again." She was still there. And we said, Mrs. Albrecht, we have boogers. And they said she laughed as hysterically as if she'd never heard it before. So that's what her personality was like. Now, I do not know why my mother was such a good sex educator, because she's dead, and I didn't think to ask her this. But she did some things that were very unusual. As did my father. My father was very physically affectionate in the most wonderful way, totally uncreepy. The boundaries in my family were really good. But my mother wound up really doing exactly the things you're supposed to do to be a good sex educator. So she had me read this little book when I was a little kid, and it was called something like how a baby is born, but it's not the same book that's out now. And the book used all the right words. It used vagina and penis and uterus. And in the story, it said, and daddy plants the seed in the mommy. So I said, Mommy, could I watch daddy plant the seed in you? My mother's like, ooh. And then she said, no. And I said, well, why not? And she thought about it for a while, and she said, well, when you get married, your children will not be able to watch your husband plant the seed in you. And apparently that satisfied me, so I was fine with that. And the other very pithy, relevant story is I'm an only child, and when I was an only child and my mother didn't want me to be an only child, she started worrying that I wouldn't know what penises looked like, and that disturbed her because she didn't want me to be scared the first time I saw a penis. So she decided that when my dad was urinating when I was a little kid, that she should have me come in and watch him. So this became a big ritual, and every time he urinated, I ran into the bathroom to see him. And apparently, every once in a while he'd get annoyed that he didn't want to have this be a joint activity, so he'd go in the bathroom and urinate by himself. And I'd hear him, I'd come screaming out of the bathroom, screaming into the bathroom saying, Daddy, Daddy, stop, 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 stop. And then I'd say, is it bubbly? And that became a family story. The other thing about my mom is she had gay friends in the 1950s, and they were part of our life. And this is when very few people were out of the closet. So to complete the story, I have to say, I probably wouldn't be as comfortable a sex therapist as I am without my mother. She and my dad gave me the capacity to listen to people, to be curious about people, to be warm, to be funny, to not be afraid of talking about sex, to be flexible, to have nice memories about sex myself so I can listen to everyone else and maybe model for them. And I see a big part of my role as being a disinhibition coach. And it all came from her. So I am very grateful to her for raising me, and for him too, for raising me the way I did and giving me a chance to have this profession that I absolutely love. I can't think of anything more interesting than the profession I have, and I'm grateful to them every single day for the way they raised me. Thank you.